if I can answer them, but if you could email them in, we will deal with them at the end of the presentation, and any that we can't deal with live, we will email on to you. So start about who am I and why was I asked to write the cruising guide? Well, Simon, my husband, and I, we spent 12 years cruising in the Pacific. We came across from Europe, we went through the Panama Canal, and then we sailed to the Galapagos. And then instead of going on the trade wind route, we decided, oh, why don't we head north? So we did. We went up to Hawaii, which was a very long trip. We then set off from there and we went up to Alaska, the most dramatic landfall I think we've ever had. And then we spent the rest of the season cruising up in the Pacific Northwest, ended up on Vancouver Island, spent another year cruising all around that part of the world, which is magic. And then we left and went down to, first of all, San Francisco and then Mexico. From Mexico, we then went across to, well, the French Polynesian through the islands to, ended up in New Zealand. So here we are in a wonderful remote anchorage in the southern part of New Zealand, having had the most wonderful time. So after all of this experience, we were invited by the Pilotage Foundation to write this book. Now, the Pilotage Foundation is a charity that is supported by the Royal Cruising Club, and they produce many worldwide guides, and it is a collaboration of all the authors, well, of various authors. Each author has a specialist area. I mean, we have people who write about the Aegean, the Baltic, Iceland, you name it, and all their books are available online. We do, of course, ask experts to help us. For example, I got a meteorologist to write this weather section for us in the South Pacific. And here's an example of just how many guides that we produce. I think there are about 80, maybe more. So what sort of experience did we have before we set off on this adventure? Well, Simon and I had spent a lot of time actually sailing, and we both of us have actually crossed the Atlantic 9 times. But however, this did not really a preparation for cruising in the Pacific. And so, although we had years of experience, our learning curve was really steep. For a start, living on board a boat for months on end is not exactly like a 2-week trip into the Caribbean. Well, so where was our learning curve started? It started with consumption and usage of power. We wildly underestimated the amount of power we would need, and in fact, I have to admit it, we didn't even have a separate alternator, second alternator on the main engine. Well, that's a very basic point. So that was step number 1. We soon put that right. And we also overestimated the number of clothes you need when sailing in the tropics. You will see all these boats sailing around in the tropics. You will see that everybody has solar panels, they have wind generators, they even have water generators as well, because you do need to get your power up, because you will use a lot more in the tropics. Also, this we talk about at length in the book. There's a lot in the first section of the Pacific Crossing Guide about preparations and how to look at their power consumption and how to supplement it in various ways. One of the other things that is important to look at are bigger boats will have generators, and one of the things that is important to do is to make sure that you've got good access around your engine and your generator, because you will be changing water filters and pumps and anodes, and I mean, after all, a lot of cruising is maintenance in exotic places. The other thing that we wildly underestimated was the amount of chain you need. We set off with 50 meters of chain, which we thought was enough, but it isn't. You do need, we started off when we were on a 45-foot boat, and so we ended up with 100 meters of chain. And you do need a good solid chain. Don't even think of having a mixture of chain and rope. Coral is extremely sharp and that won't work. We marked our chain in 10-meter lengths, it's a good advice. And we also liked the spade anchor. Now we use that as our main anchor. You will need more than one anchor. And again, we talk about this in the book and various ways of using bow anchors and stern anchors. We favoured a spade anchor. They've been around for years. This happens to be a Rockner, but there are various forms of spade anchors, and we reckon that they are really the best. And marking the chain, as I say, is an example of how to mark your chain. We use cable ties. They're cheap and easy to replace when you need to. Well, what about timing? Can you cross the Pacific north and south, east and west at any time of the year? No, obviously not. But again, we show where the hurricane season is in the North Pacific and the cyclone season in the South Pacific. And also, if you decide to go up via Japan, there is always a typhoon season, and that's got to be taken into account. We show diagrams of the general weather patterns, and so you can see where the trade winds flow, and so you can actually see how easy it is to go round and across, and in fact use the Pacific as a figure of 8. And we have another section where we show the routes that you can take. It's great because the people from the west coast of America and Alaska and Canada, they can either go via Hawaii down south, they can go down to Mexico, and then they can go back again without having to go all the way around the world. And indeed, if you're really adventurous, you can go off down to Patagonia and Chile. It's worth spending as much time as you possibly can in the Pacific because there's so much to see and do. But is it all trade winds and calm seas? No. I would be lying if I said it was all simple and easy. So the next section is really about what kind of boat is suitable. When you're out there, you will see every kind of boat that you can imagine. You will see the super yachts with immaculate crews and matching T-shirts, and you will see single-handers in tiny little boats, and you will see all different types of rigs. And rigs and rigging we spend quite a lot of time talking about because it is vital that you do check your rig before you go and also check your rig at all the major stops. But what sort of rig is really up to you with what you like. You see, here's someone who's got a junk rig. You'll see people with freedom rigs, Bermudan rigs, in-mast rolling, whatever. But basically what we say is that the boat that you know best, that's the boat that is most suitable for you because you know it so well. Whilst we're talking about the preparation of the boat, we do talk quite extensively about protection from the elements. It's all very well, it's not all blue seas and calm weather, but when squalls come through, you want to have some protection in the cockpit so that the rain and the showers don't get in. And we also think that protecting your crew from the elements is vital to their happiness, their safety, and their alertness as well. So here we have an example of you can have some canvas made up with plastic in it so that you can zip them on at the back of the spray hood. And that really is a very effective way of keeping the rain out. And here's an example of a very strong spray hood. Well, it's a solid one, and it has a window at the front that you can open, which is also good because in the tropics you then can let the air through. But above all, you do need a bimini. You're in the tropics. You don't have to tell anybody how much damage UV can do to not just your skin, but to everything else as well. So, and you do need a good bimini to keep the boat cool and yourselves cool. And if possible, it should be able to roll up so that you can, in rough weather, you may need to have it folded up. Another question we have been asked whilst we were sailing was, what about refueling? You see, my boat's not got a very big tank, and will I be able to get fuel whilst I'm on the way? And the answer is yes, you can. And in a lot of the islands now, the smaller ones, it is possible to get fuel. But you may not be able to turn up at a jetty and moor alongside as you would perhaps in your own home port. No, it's probably much more exciting. In this photograph here shows us, we had rolled the barrels down the beach. They had been put on board a dinghy, and then they were lifted on deck and they were siphoned into the tank. But that's all adds to the fun, and it's a bit all part of the adventure. And then come to navigation. Well, things have moved on since Captain Cook voyaged across the Pacific, and they did a marvellous job with all his charts. Nowadays, people use electronic charts a lot, and Navionics have been a great developer in the development of, they've been a great leader in the development of electronic charts, and they're absolutely fantastic. But we also say, do be aware, because not all charts and chart plotters are accurate, particularly in the lesser visited places and particularly amongst coral reefs. They're very difficult to chart. So we always say and warn that you must actually look out of the window occasionally and be very careful when you navigate. Here is an example of a chart on our chart plotter. We were actually anchored in 5 meters of water, but the chart plotter shows us halfway up the beach. So, although we talk a lot, and we have people who will tell you in the book, have written bits about how you can use Google Earth as well to overlay on chart plotters. That's written by other people who know about that sort of thing, and that's all in the book. But we do be beware of just relying solely on electronics. So now listen, I hope this has given you a bit of an insight. This could be your dream come true to come across the Pacific. Wouldn't you like? This is the Marquesas, the exotic French Polynesia, and you will get there and it's absolutely amazing. Perhaps you'd like to sit at anchor watching the sunset with a nice sundowner. Or maybe you're adventurous and want to go down to Patagonia. That's also how you can get down there. Or perhaps you're somebody who likes to follow what is roughly known as the coconut milk run and sit anchored off a beautiful tropical beach with palm trees and white sand and snorkel on the reefs. It's all there. Or even sitting, this is up in the Bay of Islands in New Zealand, watching the dolphins leap. And in Tonga, you can swim with whales. Why wouldn't you want to go there? And you'll meet so many convivial people, and you will swap stories, and you'll say, oh, I did this, no, I did that. And it's absolutely tremendous. And particularly in French Polynesia, the most exotic of destinations, there are the wonderful festivals in June and July where all the islanders come and they have these dance competitions, and it is the best time. And then you just may like to chill out in the islands, meet the local people, enjoy the local markets, and exchange views, learn how to cook their type of food, and enjoy their company and their hospitality. And also, don't forget, the sailing, that's why we do it. The sailing down there is wonderful. And yes, it can be your dream come true. Now, I hope I've given you a little insight to what it's like to cruise in the Pacific. And with this book in your hand, you won't go far wrong. And remember, a cruising guide's not just for Christmas. Thank you.
Kitty, we have a question. There's somebody who's saying he has a very well-equipped yacht with good modern electronics, and will he be able to find good technical support while cruising in the Pacific?
Yes, he will, but it may all take a little bit of time. The major places, like, I mean, in the Marquesas, you can get DHL, or you can get those deliveries if they need spare parts. But you should try to be as self-sufficient as you can. And the more complicated the boat, the more difficult it is going to be. The guys who have no trouble at all are the ones who have the basic boat without too many exotic instruments. But yeah, I mean, we lost our propeller in Bora Bora, and it was shipped out to us when we arrived to Tonga. However, we did have this enormously funny thing of seeing that the propeller had arrived in Auckland, and it was going to be put on a ship, and we waited 3 weeks. So things take time. Okay, is that it? Thank you for listening.